Hello, I'm back. And I think now I am streaming on 2 platforms, which is exciting. Hopefully, we'll get a more diverse chat today. I've been looking forward to doing that for a while. Anyway, I had planned to read from a different book, but I also had today realized that I don't know, I felt like it was a topic worth delving into. I had wanted to talk about it for a while. I had wanted to read this excerpt for a while and discuss it, and also just my general ideas about the subject of forgiveness. I did see my friend Griselda today had posted on her Facebook that she had been in communication with a woman who routinely encourages other people that she speaks to forgive, but she struggles with it in her own life. And the thing about forgiveness is that it isn't easy. It's actually one of the most difficult things that is asked of us. And I think a lot of the times that difficulty makes it very easy to listen to the devil whispering in our ear, telling us, that we are justified in holding on to anger. But anger is a very deadly thing to hold on to for too long. It is corrosive, not only to us spiritually, but to us physically. So I've learned this the hard way in my own life. I don't recommend holding on to anger. And every time I see a person holding on to anger and justifying it, I know that they are in the grips of a spiritual battle. So it is difficult to witness. But anyway, let's get started with this. Pull this up here. This is my copy of Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. It's, I think, one of my favorite things I've read this year, or in the past year. I read it in springtime, I think. Yes, I think I read it during Lent. Okay, so it's, let's see, page 104, it looks like. Okay. I said in a previous chapter that chastity was the most unpopular of the Christian virtues, but I am not sure I was right. I believe the one I have to talk of today is even more unpopular. The Christian rule, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Because in Christian morals, thy neighbor includes thy enemy. And so we come up against this terrible duty of forgiving our enemies. Everyone says forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive, as we had during the war. And then to mention the subject at all is to be greeted with howls of anger. It is not that people think this too high and difficult a virtue. It is that they think it hateful and contemptible. That sort of talk makes me sick, they say, and half of you already want to ask me, I wonder how you'd feel about forgiving the Gestapo if you were a Pole or a Jew. So do I. I wonder very much. Just as when Christianity tells me that I must not deny my religion, even to save myself from death by torture. I wonder very much what I should do when it came to that point. I'm not trying to tell you in this book what I could do. I can do precious little. I'm telling you what Christianity is. I did not invent it, and there, right in the middle of it, I find, forgive our sins as we forgive those that sin against us. There is no slightest suggestion that we are offered forgiveness on any other terms. It is made perfectly clear that if we do not forgive, we shall not be forgiven. There are no two ways about it. What are we to do? It is going to be hard enough anyway, but I think there are two things we can do to make it easier. When you start mathematics, you do not begin with the calculus. You begin with simple addition. In the same way, if we really want, but all depends on really wanting, to learn how to forgive, perhaps we had better start with something easier than the Gestapo. One might start with forgiving one's husband or wife, or parents or children, or the nearest NCO for something they have done or said in the last week. That will probably keep us busy for the moment. And secondly, we might try to understand exactly what loving your neighbor as yourself means. I have to love him as I love myself. Well, how exactly do I love myself? Now that I come to think of it, I have not exactly got a feeling of fondness or affection for myself, and I do not even always enjoy my own society. So apparently, love your neighbor does not mean feel fond of him or find him attractive. I ought to have seen that before, because of course you cannot feel fond of another person by trying. Do I think well of myself? Think myself a nice chap? Well, I'm afraid I sometimes do, and those are, no doubt, my worst moments. But that is not why I love myself. In fact, it is the other way round. My self-love makes me think myself nice, but thinking myself nice is not why I love myself. So loving my enemies does not apparently mean thinking them nice either. That is an enormous relief. For a good many people, imagine that forgiving your enemies means making out they are really not such bad fellows after all, when it is quite plain that they are. Go a step further. In my most clear-sighted moments, not only do I not think myself a nice man, but I know that I am a very nasty one. I can look at some of the things I have done with horror and loathing. So apparently I'm allowed to loathe and hate some of the things my enemies do. Now that I come to think of it, I remember Christian teachers telling me long ago that I must hate a bad man's actions, but not hate the bad man, or as they would say, hate the sin, but not the sinner. For a long time, I used to think this is a silly, straw-splitting distinction. How can you hate what a man did and not hate the man? But years later, it occurred to me that there was one man to whom I had been doing this all my life, namely myself. However much I might dislike my own cowardice, or conceit, or greed, I went on loving myself. There had never been the slightest difficulty about it. In fact, the very reason why I hated the things was that I loved the man. Just because I loved myself, I was sorry to find that I was the sort of man who did those things. I think that's very deep. Consequently, Christianity does not want us to reduce by one atom the hatred we feel for cruelty and treachery. We ought to hate them. Not one word of what we have said about them needs to be unsaid, but it does want us to hate them in the same way in which we hate things in ourselves. Being sorry that the man should have done such things, and hoping, if it is any way possible, that somehow, sometime, somewhere, he can be cured and be made human again. The real test is this. Suppose one reads a story of filthy atrocities in the paper. Then suppose that something turns up suggesting that the story might not be quite true, or not quite so bad as it was made out? Is one's first feeling, thank God, even they aren't quite so bad as that? Or is it a feeling of disappointment and even a determination to cling to the first story for the sheer pleasure of thinking your enemies bad as possible? If it is the second, then it is, I am afraid, the first step in a process which, if followed to the end, will make us into devils. You see, one is beginning to wish that black was a little blacker. If we give that wish its head, later on we shall wish to see gray as black, and then to see white itself as black. Finally, we shall insist on seeing everything, God and our friends and ourselves included, as bad, and not be able to stop doing it. We shall be fixed forever in a universe of pure hatred. Now a step further. Does loving your enemy mean not punishing him? No, for loving myself does not mean that I ought to not subject myself to punishment, even to death. If one had committed a murder, the right Christian thing to do would be to give yourself up to the police and be hanged. It is therefore, in my opinion, perfectly right for a Christian judge to sentence a man to death or a Christian soldier to kill an enemy. I have always thought so ever since I became a Christian and long before the war, and I still think so now that we are at peace. It is no good quoting, "Thou shalt not kill." There are two Greek words, the ordinary word to kill and the word to murder. And when Christ quotes the commandment, he uses the murder one in all three accounts, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I am told there is the same distinction in Hebrew. All killing is not murder any more than all sexual intercourse is adultery. When soldiers came to St. John the Baptist asking what to do, he never remotely suggested that they ought to leave the army, nor did Christ when he met a Roman sergeant major, what they called a centurion. The idea of the knight, the Christian in arms for the defense of the good cause, is one of the great Christian ideas. War is a dreadful thing, and I can respect an honest pacifist, though I think he is entirely mistaken. What I cannot understand is this sort of semi-pacifism you get nowadays, which gives people the idea that though you have to fight, you ought to do it with a long face and as if you were ashamed of it. It is that feeling that robs lots of magnificent young Christians in the services of something they have a right to do, something which is the natural accompaniment of courage, a kind of gaiety and wholeheartedness. I have often thought to myself how it would have been if, when I served in the First World War, I and some young German had killed each other simultaneously and found ourselves together a moment after death. I cannot imagine that either of us would have felt any resentment or even any embarrassment. I think we might have laughed over it. I imagine somebody will say, well, if one is allowed to condemn the enemy's acts and punish him and kill him, what difference is left between Christian morality and the ordinary view? All the difference in the world. Remember, we Christians think man lives forever. Therefore, what really matters is those little marks or twists on the central inside part of the soul, which are going to turn it in the long run into an heavenly or a hellish creature. We may kill if necessary, but we must not hate and enjoy hating. We may punish if necessary, but we must not enjoy it. In other words, something inside us, the feeling of resentment, the feeling that wants to get one's own back, must be simply killed. I do not mean that anyone can decide this moment that he will never feel it anymore. That is not how things happen. I mean that every time it bobs its head up, day after day, year after year, all our lives long, we must hit it on the head. It is hard work, but the attempt is not impossible. Even while we kill and punish, we must try not to feel about the enemy as we feel, we must try to feel about the enemy as we feel about ourselves, to wish that he were not bad, to hope that he may in this world or another be cured. In fact, to wish his good. That is what is meant in the Bible by loving him, wishing his good, not feeling fond of him, nor saying he is nice when he is not. I admit that this means loving people who have nothing lovable about them. But then, has oneself anything lovable about it? You love it simply because it is yourself. God intends us to love all selves in the same way and for the same reason. But he has given us the sum ready worked out on our own cause to show us how it works. We have then to go on and apply the rule to all other selves. Perhaps it makes it easier if we remember that is how he loves us, not for any nice, attractive qualities we think we have, but just because we are the things called selves. Really, there is nothing else in us to love. Creatures like us who actually find hatred such a pleasure that to give it up is like giving up beer or tobacco. It seems like lately, as I've come on, I've talked, or a matter of addictions has come up on the channel quite a bit recently, particularly in recent videos. I had talked about food addiction, and I feel like it came up in the last one as well with some other things. But the propensity to hate, to seek revenge, and to hold on to bitter feelings about other people seems to be another addiction. And I like how at the end of this piece, what he says is that people find it as difficult to give up hatred of others as it is to give up tobacco or alcohol. You know, it's another addiction, and it is, again, a spiritual affliction like any addiction. When we are overtaken by a spirit like one that seeks to have us consume alcohol, for example, to our own demise, seeks out other self-destructive behaviors like gambling or overeating or anything that seeks the pleasures of the flesh. I think too, we can look at the spirit of anger as one that takes over us and causes us to behave and act in ways that are detrimental not only to ourselves, but obviously to society generally. I mean, again, what happens if everyone is in this state of unforgiveness all the time? If everyone is justified in their own anger, in their own minds, and seeking revenge for the wrongs that have been committed against them in their lives? You know, where does that get us all? Forgiveness is the path of life. Forgiveness leads to a continuation of our world. It leads to a continuation of our relationships with others. Like he said in the book, if you can't forgive your worst enemy at this time, why not start with the people around you? Like, how often do people hold on to bitter feelings and resentments about the people closest to them? I think that's more common than even your enemies. We make enemies of our best friends, of our lovers, spouses, children, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, any family member. And these people are our intimates, people that we're meant to be close to and love, people that we rely on, but we cannot forgive them. So if we can't, we can, I think we do find it easier to forgive someone who we rely on as well, more than someone who we can make into an other. It's very easy to make an enemy who we are not in close proximity to into an other, and to then project all of the negative qualities of hatefulness and disgust onto that one person, even though if we had been in close proximity, perhaps we would be more able to understand and forgive the ways in which the offense they have caused us is maybe not so great. I don't know. Obviously, in my life, I've felt wronged by people, and I've had to learn, I think, the hard way to let go of anger and bitterness about things that have already passed, and about people who I've perceived as enemies, people who have hurt me. I mean, that's the thing too with the forgiveness. It's oftentimes people do very horrible things. People betray us. They physically harm us. They do terrible things. I mean, obviously, that's the world we live in, and none of us, I think, are immune to understanding the type of atrocities that human beings and miseries that human beings can inflict on one another. But again, that can't be the spirit in which we operate with one another. We do have to, at some point, put down the sword. We know that there is a time to fight. Like he said, there is a time to punish, there is a time to kill. And these things don't necessarily make us, they don't make us bad. But the thing is, a lot of people, with the desire to get one's own back, as he talked about, the desire to seek out revenge, it can become a pleasure in and of itself. And that pleasure that people seek in revenge is truly destructive. I have watched it destroy people in my life. And it's not as if like what they had gone through wasn't horrible, but they would become so consumed by the spirit of revenge, this vengeful, angry spirit that had taken over them and consumed them to the point that they could not act in their own self-interest anymore. It's not only, I talked about this being good for society generally to forgive, but to yourself, it is a gift that can be given, because if you are holding on to the bitter, angry, vengeful spirit, it will destroy you. Really. It will cause you to not think clearly. It will cause you to sabotage yourself. How many people have put themselves in prison? They've lost their freedom for seeking revenge. How many people have lost their freedom? How many people have lost their face, their reputation from seeking revenge? And I learned this too as well. Sometimes we want to make the world or people see or understand what we've been put through, like the betrayal, the hateful ways that we have been treated. But oftentimes when we do pursue that, when we do try to, in our minds, right the wrong, expose, it doesn't usually work out the way we want it to. And again, this is a ravenous spirit that comes to dwell in us. Nothing will satiate that spirit except total annihilation, which again, 9 times out of 10, or I think the percentages are even, I would say even smaller than that. You are going to, or higher than it, that you are going to be the thing that is consumed and destroyed. Really, honestly and truly, when you seek revenge, when you allow that spirit to dwell in you and take over you, you become the one that is destroyed. It's just the way it is. So what do we do? What do we do? I think we have to make a decision to forgive, even though it doesn't feel good, even though it doesn't feel right, even though it may hurt, even though we feel slighted by it, maybe in some way. The decision has to be made in ourselves that we are going to be the ones to rule over ourselves, not the spirit of anger. You cannot let any emotion take over you and rule you, because you become out of control. So what forgiveness gives us, excuse me, moving a little bit here, what forgiveness gives us more than anything, I think, is control. It puts us back in the driver's seat. It allows us, again, to, even though we've been wronged or put in a situation where something happened to us that we would not choose for ourselves, what forgiveness gives us is the opportunity to step back into control. I remember a meme I saw years ago. It's kind of funny. It said forgiveness, which it said the nicest way of showing you are superior. There's some truth to it, I suppose. But it isn't about being superior or inferior. Again, it's just about choosing the path that leads to life, choosing the path that leads to continued life and continued good for yourself and for humanity generally. And also, I think with forgiveness, sometimes it just takes maturity as well. An immature mind cannot fathom a lot of these things. It takes life and experience sometimes to teach us the actual power of forgiveness. And I think for anyone who is living in unforgiveness, anyone who is holding on to anger about something that someone has done to you or something that's happened in your past, somebody who is tortured in some way about this experience, I recommend just trying it. You know, for me, those were the first steps. It was just, I have been doing this my own way for years. I have been trusting my own mind about this. And you have to be careful about this. Your mind is not always your friend. I have learned that. Your mind contains many voices that will sabotage you and ruin you. Okay. So you may you will reason yourself into hell in your own mind. Okay. That is without question something that so many people do. Like I said, the justification and rationalization for why we don't have to forgive someone or something. That's, again, you may have the best sounding reason, but how does it feel within you to hold that? It's an anchor holding you back, holding you in place, keeping you stuck. And what forgiveness does is it lightens the load that you're carrying. It lightens the burdens on your soul that you are carrying. It lightens your attachment as well to whomever or whatever has harmed you. And if you have been a soul that has been weary and tortured and distressed by life and the experiences you have, you deserve to have a light load, a light spirit. I think that too for myself when I began to wake up a little bit about this. Like I said, I'd been trusting my own reason and rationalization for too long, and also the reason and rationalizations of other tortured souls who were stuck in their own misery and hell. When I decided, okay, I'm not sure about this, but I know that my way isn't working. I know that what I have done has only led me so far. And when I stepped out and took a chance and started to really work on the forgiveness piece in my life of things I had held on to, the transformations were very shocking. Like, I almost don't recognize myself anymore. I look at old photographs of myself and the eyes and just the general feeling I get from the spirit of that person. And I see how heavy she was, how labored she was with the misery and the anger. I see like her being consumed by it. And it does ravage you. It does make you sick. I am saying this as a warning, like, to people. Do not hold on to it. Let it go. You could be free today. You could be free. And you deserve it as well. Like, again, loving of the self. If we are to love our neighbor as ourself, right? Well, how do we love ourselves? We cannot love our neighbor as our, self. We cannot, if we are not loving to ourselves, if we are not giving ourselves an easier time of it, not burdening ourselves with something that wasn't ever ours to carry. Excuse me. What else to say about forgiveness? It's like laying down an anchor or a millstone or something. It really is. It's profoundly freeing to forgive. It's like the severing of a cord that is dragging you down to the bottom of the sea. I don't know how else to describe it. And it's like suddenly you're light and you can come to the surface and you can breathe. So I mean, do what you want. We're all here with some level of free will, but if you haven't tried it, if you haven't tried to forgive, I really recommend just trying. Maybe it'll take a while, maybe you have a lot to forgive. But I also have to say, have you ever stepped outside of yourself and tried to have a view of the situations you've been in from a different perspective? Because maybe that is what's, lacking. Maybe you're only seeing a situation from your perspective. I don't mean that you have to see it from the perspective of the individual that wronged you. I think that's the hardest perspective to see it from. But look at a big picture. Look at your life as a story as well. Our lives are tapestries. They're stories that are being told. And what story do you know of? What great story do you know of that doesn't have some tragedy or betrayal or what hero doesn't go through some challenges, some dark times? It doesn't exist in a great story. I think too, just to touch on again a piece of the writing that I read from, when he talked about forgiving your parents, your spouse, what have you, your children, a person who is in a state of unforgiveness against an enemy is more likely to be a person who holds on to anger generally, meaning that you will find it a lot harder to forgive those closest to you for perceived slights or for disappointments than you would be to forgive, or something major that happened in your life from a perceived enemy. You may find it that if you hold on to anger in any respect, you're more quick to anger as well. That's a reality. I mean, when you let go of anger, when you forgive, and when you let that spirit come out of you, you'll find you're less likely to be provoked to anger in other situations. That's another kind of amazing thing about forgiveness. Your first response won't be anger all the time. Sweetheart, what's going on? Hi. You got something to say? You want up here? Cat break. You got something to say about this? You forgive me? You forgive me? I gave you 2 cans already. You already had 2 cans. Now what you want? What you wanting? Hi, baby. What a good kitty I have. You want up here? Come on up here. He wants me. He wants some mama. That's what he wants. Come up here. Come on, Bubba. Look, I've made my lap acceptable to you. Come up here. I have uncrossed my legs. Come on. He's so sweet. I mean, really, how did I get so lucky to have such a dear cat? What is this? Okay, I don't know. I had an alert here on the live. Come here. Oh, he just walked away. Here I thought we were going to get him on camera, but I guess he does not want to make his way onto the camera today. Well, anyway, I've been talking for 40 minutes and we have 9 viewers. I don't know who is watching, but I'd love to hear any of your thoughts or perspectives about the idea of forgiveness, if you have any experience with it. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me? Are you going to be over there wallowing? Or are you going to come over here and get some attention? He does so hate to not be the center of attention sometimes, I swear. I can't blame him. Who does not love attention? Hey, what are you doing? Come here. Come back here. Why are you going over there? Why are you being that way with me? Don't you care for me? Am I not your true friend? Have we not lived together for many years? What's wrong? What is wrong, my dear one? You are my dearest cat. You are the dearest cat in the world. I've never seen a better cat anywhere. They don't exist. That's not a real thing. My kitty is the best kitty that ever was, is, or will be. That's right. Ever was, is, or will be. This kitty right here. Come here. Come on. Come on up. Come on. Wow. Here he is in all his glory. Yes, you good boy. You good boy. What a good kitty. How I get so lucky to have the best kitty? What made me so lucky? I just must have been blessed because I got the best kitty. Oh, you're going to come your fur off. What are you doing with that fur? You're getting that little fur everywhere. Yes, you are, sweetheart. How am I so lucky that I have the best kitty? I don't know, but it is what it is. You. Yes, good boy. Oh, what a good boy. He is honest and true and good. He is honest and true and good. I love him. I love him. Yes, I do. He's a good kitty. Yes, he is. There ain't no other kitty. Ain't no other kitty like you. Ain't no other kitty so good. Who as good as the kitty? Who better than my kitty is? Who better than my kitty is? He is digging his claws into my flesh now. But I forgive him because he cannot help himself. It is in his nature. You can't help your nature, can you? No, you can't. Likewise, I think humans too, we cannot help our nature, but we can understand it and we can learn to rise above it. Hi, Achan, welcome. Good to see you. And you have your little black kitty there. What a dear little black kitty. No claws. No claws right there. Please, Mr. Kitty. Well, it seems, I don't know, I guess nobody else has any thoughts about forgiveness, which is surprising because it is one of those more hot button topics, you know? Again, yeah, this is the kind of subject that people will, again, because they're angry, they're possessed by an angry spirit, like I said, that they let that spirit of anger talk in their ear, convince them to let it overtake them and run them instead of them being in control. And that spirit of anger seeks to destroy. It seeks to also grow. That's the thing too. It seeks to possess others. You know. Like I said in a previous video, miserable people are to be avoided. You know, people who just love and are addicted to those negative feelings. They will not be happy. They will not be contented until everyone else is at that same level, you know. And the thing about that, and the reason why it is so important to avoid, is that that energy imprint that they're in is so much heavier. Like I said before, carrying around unforgiveness is like having a millstone around your neck. It's like having an anchor holding you in place. So because their energy is so heavy, when you are around it and you take it on yourself, which is what, you know, engaging with people is like, period. When you allow yourself to be in their energy, it weighs you down as well. It wants to bring you down to its level. And because it is a hateful spirit, an angry spirit that has possessed them, they will say and do all manner of things to provoke you into a state of anger. That's the thing as well. So trying to like discuss this with people who are so committed to unforgiveness. I mean, they'll throw out anything to kind of bring you down. They don't, a miserable spirit does not want to see others happy. What is wrong with you? What are you doing? You saw him. He was happy and content here a moment ago. What is wrong? Why are you discontent? Get your little butt over here right now. That's what I thought. What is wrong with you? What? What is wrong with you? Are you bored? I don't know. What? Do you want back up here? What do you want? What I can do for you? What I can do for you, Mr. Kitty? What I can do? He is just making this stream about him. What? No, you get back here. Come back. Oh, he's so bossy. I'm being bossed around by a bossy black feline. Goodness gracious me. What was I saying? Yeah. I've experienced it before where the ravenous, all-consuming angry spirit that dwells in the unforgiveness, the people who choose to live in unforgiveness, it's a very frightening thing to encounter. What? What you want? Why are you doing this? Why are you not content? You are not going outside. I don't care. You're not going outside. I don't care how many times you ask. He thinks he's going to go outside. Where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? Like, really? That's a hallway. You're not going into the hallway. Goodness. Well, anyway, thank you all for being here and listening to this discussion. As nobody has anything to add, I will be taking off. I mean, other than Nero, obviously, he has a lot to say. But I think as he is being so disruptive to the stream at this point, it is time to see if I can give him some contentment through play. Perhaps get one of his toys and see if that will soothe his tempers. But thank you for listening and considering the things said here. And as always, keep it strange, I guess. Until next time.